Shalom. I'm Rabbi Arthur Waskow. I'm director of the Shalom Center. And you can find our website at theshalomcenter.org. THE shalomcenter.org. This week, I'm struck by two moments. One, moving from life to remembering some Torah that seemed to teach a lesson. And the second, reading some Torah that seemed to teach a lesson about life. So I'd like to tell you about both of them. Very recently, only 7 Republican senators voted to convict the former president of inciting insurrection. That reminded me of a passage in the book of Genesis in chapter 18, when Abraham argues with God. Abraham challenges God, shall not the judge of all the world do justice? And he asks God, shouldn't you refrain from destroying the city of Sodom, even for its sin of hating and damaging, violating foreigners, if there were decent people among the citizens of Sodom who would die in the disaster? So Abraham starts this way. He says, what if there were 50 decent citizens? Would that be enough to save the city? And God agrees to refrain from destroying the city for the sake of 50 decent people. Then Abraham goes, what about 45, 40, 30, maybe even 20, maybe even 10? And then Abraham stops. He doesn't ask God to save the city if there were 7 decent citizens, or 5, or 1. Why not? Because Abraham and God both knew that it takes at least 10 people to transform an evil society for the good. 10 who will have each other's backs, 10 who will hold and heal each other when they're wounded, 10 who will love each other, 10 who will protect each other, 10 who will help each other speak against tyranny. They wanted 10 Republican senators to stand together, and their absence portends the ruin of their party. May God grant that its ruin will not bring down fire, flood, and famine on our lovely and beloved planet as Sodom went up in smoke. So what's the other side of this very rich coin? It's the Torah portion that we read this week. It's called Terumah, and it's Exodus chapter 3 chapters from 25 to 27. These chapters describe Moses on the mountain listening to God. And what's God doing? Describing the portable Mishkan, or shrine of the presence of God, that the Israelites are supposed to learn to carry in their journey through the wilderness. Moses can't quite understand the words to describe this building, and he tells God, "I don't understand." So God provides the first PowerPoint showing pictures of golden implements, scarlet and purple hangings, the details of its beauty. The people themselves were supposed to gather, to sew, to smelt, to tie the pieces together with grommets, to untie and retie them when the shrine of the presence, the Mishkan, needed to move from one place to another in the wilderness. For years, it seemed to me that this was an overdoing of sacred art. Art very well, but this seemed overdone. And then a member of the congregation I was part of came back from the first gay pride gathering in Washington, D.C. And she described how thousands of people had sewn thousands of squares of cloth, some of them in gorgeous color, others of them in black mourning, each one remembering somebody who had died of AIDS, each one with grommets at the corner of the squares so as to be able to tie and untie them when it was time for the gigantic quilt to be ready to move from city to city for display. When the quilt was ready uh, to serve as a public mourning. The word grommet transfixed me. I'd never heard the word except in the story of the Mishkan, the shrine. And here it was being used to describe the AIDS quilt. And it overwhelmed me. The quilt was a Mishkan, a shrine. And the Mishkan was a quilt. Each was the first defiant act of beauty of people who had been closed in narrow slavery, of people who had been closed in narrow closets. These were the people coming out of those closets, out of that slavery, to make a quilt, a mishkan, triumphs of liberty, triumphs of beauty. Each one was portable, meant to be carried to those who had not yet understood the message. Freedom, joy, even in the midst of sorrow. Freedom. So these two, quite different, seemed not quite so different. One was without 10 people, the result was disgrace and threatened ruin. The other was that the presence of thousands made beauty and freedom. Each one is a lesson for our own time, our own future. So, this is Arthur Waskow from the Shalom Center. See our website, the THE, the shalomcenter.org, and maybe subscribe to getting our weekly uh, Shalom report about what needs to be done to heal America and to heal the planet that's so deeply wounded. Be well, Shalom. Have a good Shabbos.